Welcome to Close Listening. I'm your host, Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today we're continuing our journeys through the Beatles studio album. And now we are up to album number 5, Help. So Help is an interesting title track. It's an interesting song to open the album. So let's just jump right into track 1. So John Lennon is not yet at the point of writing psychedelic content. He's not yet at the point of writing political content, but he's clearly beyond playing just filler love songs for the pop crowd. So this song, just like Hard Day's Night, it's recognizable on the first note, and it's basically this scream for help. And if you look up the meaning, John Lennon does not feel like he's doing okay within the midst of Beatlemania, within the midst of all the intense fandom. And if you look at the song, the lyrics are very simple. It's almost, a bit too simple in its morality. Everybody needs some help kind of thing, but just the intensity with which it's sung makes it interesting. And I've always enjoyed this one as a song. It was interesting to hear it in the context of the Beatles rom-com Yesterday a few years ago, because while I didn't think it was a particularly good performance out of context, in context it was performed with this desperate intensity, and it worked in the storyline in that movie very well, which is a movie I like despite its rom-com corniness. I think there were some clever elements to it. And anyway, Help is a great song to open an album, and it's a great way to have a title track to an album. So if you look at the cover art for this record, you have the Beatles all in blue, and they're spelling out help. And again, it sort of makes this record a kind of transition thing, because it's the most artistic Beatles cover to date, but it's still just, a photograph of the four of them. The next song on the album is called The Night Before. Like many of the, lesser Beatles songs, many of the, less famous Beatles songs, and I really have to put that in quotations because the Beatles seem to be the one band where almost or every song they ever recorded has its own Wikipedia article. The way I describe this one is it's a surfed up Wake Up Little Susie, Wake Up Little Susie being this Everly Brothers hit about a couple falling asleep together at a drive-in movie and oh so scandalous. This one has a sort of surf rock echo to it. It's kind of mysterious, even though the lyrical content is fairly straightforward. There's something very mysterious to the way they recorded it. The one thing that kind of throws me off is the way they bring in more drum sound into the bridge. It's like they have this cool psychedelic feeling, and then they want to show, well, we can have two different sounds over the course of the song, but the first sound is so interesting that throwing in the drums, it doesn't make it any better. But yeah, this was a cool song. This was a pleasant surprise for me. Track number 3 is called You've Gotta Hide Your Love Away. And this is one I heard once a long time ago and haven't really thought about since. Back when I was in 7th grade and not nearly as into music as I am today, though trying to go on that path, we read The Outsiders in school, and our teacher, who was great, Carrie Jong, she gave us this assignment where we had to listen to various songs and comment on them in the context of The Outsiders. And she gave us Bob Dylan's A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. And for the Beatles, I believe she gave us Nowhere Man and You've Gotta Hide Your Love Away. So unfortunately, I don't really remember The Outsiders so well, though we also read Romeo and Juliet that year. So I don't know, I have the whole thing kind of confused up in my head. But if you look at the lyrics to You've Gotta Hide Your Love Away, it's kind of cryptic. It's hard to know what John is talking about. I guess it's kind of prophetic that he would have this forbidden love of sorts with Yoko Ono. It has a more acoustic sound than the previous track. You hear the acoustic guitar, you hear tambourines. Kind of reminds me of a Proclaimers song, actually. So as I said, every Beatles song is on Wikipedia, or almost every Beatles song. And apparently the main thing with this one is John was trying to write a Bob Dylan kind of song. But, John's voice, even rough as it can be at times, it's, worlds smoother than Dylan's, and it's not crammed with wordplay. So though you can hear the Dylan influence, it doesn't really sound like Bob Dylan. It sounds like something a bit folky, but something else. It's not quite the Bob Dylan thing it was meant for. Track number 4 is called I Need You. This one is sung by George, and it's also a George Harrison composition. It's kind of interesting. There are these chords that are sort of pulled off. I don't know if staccato is the right word, but they're very brief, and it's a bit disconcerting. So it's kind of musically interesting, but it's sort of in this in between space where the lyrics aren't very interesting and the music isn't that experimental. So it just comes across as a kind of weird, awkward pop song. And so, yeah, not bad. It's only, lesser compared to the other George Harrison songs and other Beatles songs. But yeah, I guess I got a kind of non-committal vibe with the sound for this one. The next track on the album is called Another Girl. It's Paul singing primarily. It has a bluesy rockabilly feel to it. I also found this one to be a bit rough, though I do like John's high singing on Another Girl when he's sort of doing the backup vocal role. But, not every Beatles song can be a hit. This one wasn't that interesting. The next song is called You're Gonna Lose That Girl. And even if it's not the most perfect lyrically, I love how provocative it is. Because on the one hand, it sounds like one of these pop love song advice kind of things, kind of like She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. Whereas in She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, the Beatles are being the good boy saying, you've got to do the right thing. You've got to apologize to her, giving this corny, feel good advice. And this song, it has that same tone, but it has this malicious threat in it. If you're not good to your woman, I'm going to steal her, as if that's a thing that just happens with relationships. Anyway, it's kind of it's an interesting novelty song. The next song in the album is another one that I knew previously, but hadn't really thought about that much. It's called Ticket to Ride. And this one, the sound really takes off, something that if it was later on, you might think had a bit of a Jeff Lynne influence to it. It's kind of slow, kind of jiggly. This is mostly a John Lennon composition, so you can I guess, see the origins of John's psychedelic impulses. I think Paul disputes that. I think he describes it as more 50-50. But I think John's version is that Paul primarily came up with this part where Ringo plays a different drum beat. And it reminds me of The Night Before, where they throw in this more shuffly drum beat. And, it's a predecessor to songs like A Day in the Life, where the Beatles are trying to string different melodies together. And that's something Paul would continue to do in his solo career. But for the second time, it just feels like they started off really strong, and adding the different drums sure makes it sound different, but it doesn't make it better. If anything, it shows, okay, you had a really high peak with your sound and you can't improve on that. Sometimes it's best to keep going. The next song on the record is a cover of the Buck Owens country song, Act Naturally. Ringo has sung on some of the other records. I didn't think Honey Don't previously was the best choice for Ringo. That was a Carl Perkins song because, Carl Perkins has a kind of cool vibe, but Act Naturally, this is just the perfect song for Ringo. And other than Octopus's Garden, I'm not sure if I've heard a better performance from Ringo, because this is a song saying, I'm going to be a big movie star because I'm such a big, awkward, lonely dope. The premise of the song is it's a movie about a lonely guy begging for his lover back because he's been given up on and he's feeling kind of pathetic. And Ringo's like, look at me, I'm the funny, pathetic Beatle. And it just works great with Ringo's voice. I'm sure it's a fun song originally with Buck Owens, but this is the version I know and I love it. It's, one of the surprising highlights of the album. The next song is called It's Only Love. And this is, again, John trying to go in a different direction with sound. It has a kind of spacey vibe to it. It's showing his range as a performer. He's not just this feisty singer of love songs. He can go in a bit more of a relaxed, hippie kind of direction. I don't know. It's not yet at a point where the lyrics are too strong per se, but John just has this really genuine affect in this song, and it's one I appreciated listening to. It's a sound I didn't see coming. The next song on the album, number 10, it's called You Like Me Too Much. It's another George composition. Again, not George at his best. He's still developing as a songwriter, I suppose. It has a kind of saloon piano in the background. And, this is a case where, you just think about your lyrics for 5 seconds more. And I hate that I'm talking down to George Harrison. The guy did so much. He wrote so many great songs, but You Like Me Too Much. That's, you'd need at least one more syllable in there, or something like that, to make it flow more naturally, melodically. If you're just saying a phrase and it doesn't flow from your mouth, just, tinker with the phrase a little till you get some melody, or even add one of those Buddy Holly pickups. Next song on the album, track number 11, is called Tell Me What You See. Uh, I found that John and Paul's voices just blended perfectly in this one, so it didn't sound more like a Paul song or more like a John song. They do this thing that's kind of cool musically, but maybe at the end of the day, not kind of fun to listen to, where when the voices blend so well, they can sort of follow the instruments around and you can hear the different instrumental sounds. I thought there was a bit of a twang to this that reminded me of the sitar that the Beatles would use in later recordings, though there's not a sitar. Track number 12, this is a real classic. I'm not sure if I'd say it's one of the most famous Beatles songs, but how do you really say that with the Beatles? But I just have this fond memory of on this festival in my city called Nuit Blanche, where there's art installations all around Toronto. I don't actually like Nuit Blanche all that much because the art is all so spread out that it doesn't actually feel like an event. It just mostly feels like walking through very crowded streets where people who drink and get high do that. And occasionally you see some art and you're like, oh, that's very cool. But mostly it's just like any other night, except it's crowded and full of drunk people. But anyway, I found this one little corner where a friend of mine from this campus club I'd been part of just set up and was jamming with ukulele players at various levels. And I heard him play this very simple song that I'd never heard before. And I just joined in. And anyway, this song is I've Just Seen a Face. And I don't know if you've never heard it, it's just a wonderful experience because I was maybe knocking overly simple lyrics before, but Paul's just got the rhythm perfectly. It's a simple chords, very acoustic, but he just jumps from the words so naturally. It's so upbeat. It's so much fun to listen to. This is the high of simple, early-ish rock love songs. Track number 13 is called Yesterday. And this is one that kind of confuses me a bit. Supposedly, it's the most covered Beatles song. And in that movie, Yesterday, towards the beginning of the movie, the singer plays the song Yesterday, and his girlfriend acts like it's the most beautiful thing in the world she's ever seen. Personally, I just assume Yesterday is the most covered Beatles song because, it's has a beautiful vibe to it, and it doesn't require all kinds of fancy instrumentation. It's just Paul, a guitar, and some strings. I've just never found it a particularly interesting song, but I guess accessibility and the fact that you can use it both in a chill tribute to the Beatles or in a more somber space, it just makes it maybe the most useful Beatles song, and that's why it's so well known. Finally, track 14, they end the album with a cover. It's called Dizzy Miss Lizzy. It's just fun rockabilly. It has kind of Little Richard style lyrics to it, but it's actually by a singer named Larry Williams, who was friends with Little Richard, though I believe there was some heated tension at points in that relationship. Larry Williams, maybe not part of the most famous group of rockabilly singers, but certainly someone people would have known if they were rock fans in the 60s. He was associated with songs like Dizzy Miss Lizzy, and I think his most famous song is Boney Maroney. So the Beatles continuing to have fun, paying tribute to their influences from the 50s, 60s. Good place to end the album. Yeah, so overall on Help, I discovered some fun new stuff. I enjoyed It's Only Love. I enjoyed The Night Before. Help is, of course, a classic song. You're Gonna Lose That Girl. Very, fun, awkward moment. And Ticket to Ride, pretty cool, spacey hit. So bit of a transition moment for the Beatles, kind of one foot in the old door, one foot in the new. If you haven't heard this record, it's a good one. Check it out. Anyway, I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.